Okay, I'm just getting everything set up here. I'm waiting for anyone who wants to join us live. Okay. Seems like a bit of a process every time. I got my audio and my notes and streaming to Facebook at the same time. So it's a bit of a process each time. I'll just wait a few minutes. If you are joining live, say hi. If you're catching this as a replay, you can hashtag replay in the comments and say hi as well. You can also, if there's anything that you want to comment on or ask about, or just share your experience with anything that I'm speaking about, or share something that's resonating, you're welcome to do that in the comments. And we'll get started in a few minutes. Also for today, it might be helpful to just have something that you can take a few notes on, even if that's on your computer or on your phone. And we're going to be doing a little bit of a kind of assessment, self-assessment on our own self-compassion. And so it can be helpful to, there's like a score and then you divide it. Depending on how good your mental maths is, you might want to have something where you can calculate that. So I'm assuming phones. I don't know if anyone actually owns a physical calculator anymore, but yeah, whatever works for you, old school, new school. There should be some form of entertainment while you wait to start. If you have any ideas, let me know. Have a little dance party while we wait. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and introduce myself so long for those of you who don't know me. I am Sarah, health and recovery coach for female clinicians, and specifically within the context of burnout, chronic stress, feeling overwhelmed. And we dive into topics such as this one, things that help you prioritize your own health and recovery, prioritize your own energy so that we're not constantly only taking care of other people, taking care of our patients, and end up feeling exhausted, feeling drained, feeling stressed out, and not feeling like we have the time or energy to do the things that we actually want to do or the things that are really important to us. And I find that people often also feel quite resentful and frustrated that their whole life is spent kind of taking care of other people, and they don't feel like they have the time and energy to prioritize themselves. So we touch on all kinds of topics within that. I like to say that we are emotional and mental athletes, and we need to be performing, we need to be recovering, we need to be reaching out for support in the way that a physical athlete would do that in their realm of performance as well. So I like to focus on topics around mental and emotional health and recovery. But of course, all these things kind of go into that. Like today, we're talking about self-compassion, how we talk to ourselves, how we treat ourselves. And that plays into stress, it plays into behavior change, it plays into how we show up on a daily basis in our practice. And it shows up in whether or not we actually prioritize ourselves as well. And then things like time management, things like boundaries, and things like exercise, nutrition, stress management, etc. So we dive into all these topics, but they're all around our health and recovery and prioritizing that as female clinicians. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start the workshop. So today we're talking about self-compassion. And I want to start this session by just touching on why this is actually important. And like I said, it plays into a lot of areas that we think about in terms of health and recovery. And I'm going to read a little section soon from this book about the benefits of it. But essentially, we want to look at it as something that's not, we often think about it as something that's like some sort of weakness, or if we are self-compassionate, we're not going to change, or we're just going to be kind of lazy or very passive with regards to our behavior. Yeah, it's seen as like kind of a weak, passive thing that is not really this like fuel for changing our behavior or to having a thriving life. And that is what I want to convince you of today, that that is not in fact the case. So we're going to start with doing a little bit of a self-assessment. So we're going to be rating different statements from between the numbers 1 to 5. So I'm just going to read from this book because it has the scales in. I will make a little document where you can kind of have reference to these scales in the future, but I just find it's helpful to reflect on our own abilities, our skills, our level of whatever it is we're talking about, in this case, self-compassion, so that when we go into the other elements of it, when we're going into the information behind it, you have a bit more of a sense of relatability to the topic, and you can keep relating it back to your answers to these questions and what you felt and what you thought of when you were answering these. So we're going to answer these from 1, which is almost never, to 5, which is almost always. I'm just going to write this in the comments. Scale. This is the first one. The other one is going to be the opposite way around, just to confuse you. So I'm just going to write first scale is 1 is almost never, and 5 is almost always. So the ones that I'm reading now is relating to this scale. Let's check that that's correct. And obviously you can do any point in between. It's not only 1 to 5, but from a scale of 1 to 5. Okay, I think that's pretty clear. Like over-explaining this. Okay, so we're going to rate the first one, which is I try to be understanding and patient towards those aspects of my personality that I don't like. So 1, almost never, to 5, almost always. I'll read that again. I try to be understanding and patient towards those aspects of my personality that I don't like. And just write whichever number first comes to mind. It doesn't have to be perfect or thought out a lot or whatever it is. Okay, second statement. When something painful happens, I try to take a balanced view of the situation. When something painful happens, I try to take a balanced view of the situation. The third one. I try to see my failings as part of the human condition. I try to see my failings as part of the human condition. And the next one. When I'm going through a very hard time, I give myself the caring and tenderness that I need. When I'm going through a hard time, a very hard time, I give myself the caring and tenderness that I need. When something upsets me, I try to keep my emotions in balance. When something upsets me, I try to keep my emotions in balance. Okay, and then the last one for this part of it. When I feel inadequate in some way, I try to remind myself that feelings of inadequacy are shared by most people. When I feel inadequate in some way, I try to remind myself that feelings of inadequacy are shared by most people. Okay, so that's the first part. I'm just going to write here the second part because it is opposite, as I said. So this time, the one, multitasking, not a strength. This one is almost always, and 5 is almost never. Second scale, 1 is almost always, and 5 is almost never. And again, obviously some point in between as well. Okay, so this is the first statement of the first one, of the second one. When I fail at something important to me, I become consumed by feelings of inadequacy. So 1 almost always, 5 almost never. When I fail at something important to me, I become consumed by feelings of inadequacy. When I'm feeling down, I tend to feel like most other people are probably happier than I am. When I'm feeling down, I tend to feel like most other people are probably happier than I am. When I fail at something that's important to me, I tend to feel alone in my failure. When I fail at something that's important to me, I tend to feel alone in my failure. If I'm not going too fast, or maybe painfully slow. When I'm feeling down, I tend to obsess and fixate on everything that's wrong. When I'm feeling down, I tend to obsess and fixate on everything that's wrong. The next one is, I'm disapproving and judgmental about my own flaws and inadequacies. I'm disapproving and judgmental about my flaws, my own flaws and inadequacies. And the last statement, I'm intolerant and impatient towards those aspects of my personality that I don't like. So we're just doing a rating scale. This one is 1 almost always, 5 almost never. I'm intolerant and impatient towards those aspects of my personality that I don't like. Okay, so essentially we're going to take the scores of the first one. We're going to do all of them together. So the first one and the second one, add up the total of all of it. So it should be 12 statements. Again, I will put this in a document or something if that's easier. But just adding up the total of all the ratings that you gave for each of those. And then we want to divide that total score by 12. So we want to get your mean score. So total of the first 6 and the second 6 scales, and then dividing that by 12 to get your mean score. And then this is the kind of interpretation of the score. A score ranging from 2.75 to 3.25 is average. So again, 2.75 to 3.25 is average. Below 2.75 is low, and above 3.25 is high. So I hope that just gives you a bit of a sense of your own kind of tendencies when it comes to self-compassion, and also just rating these scales kind of gives us already a bit of a sense of what does it actually mean to be self-compassionate. But essentially, if we are just simplifying it, it is being a good friend to ourselves. So whatever we think of as compassion, we are just turning that inwards. So there are 3 elements of self-compassion. The one is mindfulness. So that just means we are present with our own suffering, our own discomfort, our own emotional state. We are being aware of it, we're being mindful of it, we are being present with it. We're not running away, we're not trying to numb it out, we're not trying to bulldoze over it, pretend they don't exist. The second aspect of self-compassion is common humanity, which means we are recognizing that we are not uniquely flawed, we are not uniquely useless or dumb or clumsy or whatever it is. We are not uniquely flawed, but that we share these inadequacies, these hardships, these mistakes with the rest of humanity. And then the third one is kindness. So kindness just being that we respond to ourselves with this idea of like, how can I help you? How can I reduce your suffering? And I'll go through kind of a few examples of this in practice as well. But I just wanted to read this section on like, what are the benefits of self-compassion? Because as I said, we have these misconceptions about self-compassion, that it's kind of weak, or that we're never going to kind of get anywhere if we just kind of soft with ourselves or whatever it is. So I just want to read you a summary of the research around self-compassion. Okay, so people who are more self-compassionate tend to be happier, more hopeful and optimistic. They are more satisfied with their lives and grateful for what they have. They're less anxious, depressed, stressed, and fearful. They're less likely to contemplate suicide or abuse drugs and alcohol. They're wiser and more emotionally intelligent and can regulate their negative emotions more effectively. They have a more positive body image and are less likely to develop eating disorders. They're more likely to engage in helpful behaviors like exercise, eating right, and seeing the doctor. They're physically healthier, they sleep better, get fewer colds, and have stronger immune systems. They're more motivated, conscientious, and take more responsibility for themselves. They're more resilient when faced with life's challenges and have more grit and determination to reach their goals. They have closer and more functional relationships with friends, family, and romantic partners and report more sexual satisfaction. They're more forgiving, empathetic, and able to take others' perspectives. They're more compassionate to others, but are also able to caretake without burning out. Not a bad set of perks for something as simple as treating yourself as you would a good friend. So I think that's also kind of why I wanted to start here, because I think it's really important for us to discuss compassion towards others. And a lot of the time we think we are being compassionate when we are actually engaging in what is called like a near enemy of compassion, which means it looks kind of like compassion, but is something else. So these are things like pity, or taking on that other person's suffering as if it's your own and calling that compassion, or wanting to fix them. Those kinds of things are not actually true compassion. And when we start with being self-compassionate and we engage in all those benefits of being self-compassionate, we are also more able to be compassionate towards others. And like it said in the research, we are more likely to be able to engage in compassion for others and caretake without burning out ourselves. And as you notice, it actually makes you more able to go for certain goals. It makes you more resilient. It makes you more able to emotionally regulate, all these kinds of things, which are often the opposite of what we think when we're thinking of being compassionate towards ourselves. So yeah, let me start with the physiology, and then we'll go into a few details in practice, a few examples, sorry, in practice as well. I'm just gonna Okay, cool. So let's look at the physiology of why this actually works and why we tend to do the opposite. So when you think of when you have made a mistake or you are going through something that is difficult, we often have a stress response. In some sense, we are noticing that there's some other threat to us. And in response to that, we have a stress response. And often our thought is that if I just criticize myself, if I shame myself and judge myself, I will be so motivated to change that I will then not have to deal with the hardship of whatever I face. So I will not have to deal with the discomfort of making that mistake again or facing that hardship again. And this stress response, it's kind of it's a sympathetic dominant response. So we are releasing cortisol and adrenaline. We kind of like seat in this stress response. Sometimes we are in a short term very motivated to change something just because we're trying to like alleviate that suffering and that discomfort as soon as possible. So that can sometimes in the short term allow us to change behavior, but it has such a high stress response that in the long term is not only unsustainable, but is also has incredibly bad health effects for ourselves and also for our relationships with others. Because when we are stressed, when we are feeling shamed and judged, even if that's by ourselves, we are more likely to isolate from others. So it can sometimes be just our default response. Sometimes it's a learned response. It's how we've seen our caretakers from very young respond to a threat or something that they did wrong. We learn our self-talk from a very early age. So that can be a very it feels kind of natural to do that. It feels like, of course, I just need to like beat myself up until I change. And if you think of, let's say you did something in practice, right? And you said something that you thought was dumb, and then you told a friend of yours that you did this. If you think about his or her response to you, if they say, "What is wrong with you? Like, why would you say that?" Or "Why are you so useless? Why are you so dumb?" Or like, "I would never say something like that," or whatever it is, but some kind of like harsh judgment or shaming you for what you did, you are not likely to firstly connect with that person or to share more of what you are, of what you did or what you're thinking or what you're feeling. So you're likely to isolate. And then you're also likely to have that stress response and that kind of closing up and actually not be open to changing, open to feedback, etc. So if you think of the opposite of a good friend saying like, oh my gosh, that is really hard. How can I help you? How can I make you feel better? Sometimes they will give us a hug. And this is engaging in the other part of our physiology, a different way of coping with a threat. So the one was more of a stress response of like releasing cortisol, adrenaline, flight, freeze, or fawn. You activate that stress response. This is in response to the same threat, the same mistake or hardship. We are trying to take a different route in order to make ourselves feel better and to be able to engage and change in the long term. So this is called the mammalian care system. And this releases, instead of the stress hormones, we're releasing oxytocin and endorphins. So feel good, pleasure, connection. And this helps us to actually, this is what can help us do the opposite. So we are, instead of removing ourselves from others, we are engaging, we are seeking connection. Instead of having that stress response, we feel calm and relaxed. Instead of feeling judged and shamed and withdrawn and closed up, we are open to feedback, we are open to change, we're open to trying again, trying something new, etc. So that's the physiology of it. We're trying to engage a different way of doing things that is more effective, it's healthier, and is definitely in the long run a far better alternative. And you can just kind of keep thinking of, how would I engage if I was a friend of mine, instead of how I kind of just naturally respond to myself, because it's no different. What you would say to a friend is exactly what you need to be hearing and feeling and learning in that moment. So one of the ways that we can do it is just to remember those three aspects of it. So it's mindfulness, common humanity, and kindness. So let's say, for example, I'm in practice and a patient, let's say, had an appointment with me, and then later they phoned the practice and they said, like, please don't book me with her again. And they had this and that complaint, they weren't happy, whatever it is. And my immediate response is to feel absolutely crap about what I'm like as a practitioner, to judge myself, to shame myself, and to think that I am uniquely this terrible healthcare provider. Everyone else is so much better than me. I am the only one that makes these mistakes. I'm the only one that disappoints patients, etc. So that would more likely, firstly, make me withdraw from other practitioners. I'm not likely to seek out another practitioner or friend or tell them how I'm feeling, because I'm feeling like I don't want them to see this like terribleness that is me. So when we're engaging in these three things, we're doing the opposite. So mindfulness would just be me checking in with, how do I feel in response to hearing this? Right. And we don't want to bulldoze over the fact that we are uncomfortable. We don't want to be like, oh, whatever, I don't care, when we really do care. We don't want to be, I guess, pretending or ignoring or bulldozing over our own feelings. We actually want to be able to sit with ourselves and be present with our own discomfort and our own feelings, our own emotions and sensations in our body, and not have to kind of run away or to hide that away or whatever it is. So we're being mindful, we're being present, we're being willing to be with ourselves in that difficult moment. The second one, of common humanity, is me reminding myself that I'm not the only clinician that this has ever happened to, right? I'm not uniquely kind of useless or bad at my job, or just disappointing as a human being. I'm not, there's nothing that is uniquely flawed about me, and most likely other practitioners have experienced the same, other people have experienced the same in other situations, etc. So reminding myself that I am just part of common humanity who has also likely experienced similar hardships or mistakes. And that's also, I think, part of what this group can be, is that when we are sharing our own experiences, we are reminding each other that we also have these kinds of experiences. And if you ever are feeling like, oh my gosh, this thing happened and I feel so shit about it, or I'm feeling like, like I'm feeling terrible and I'm feeling inadequate and I'm feeling ashamed or whatever it is, you can always post it on this group. You can post it anonymously, and we can all just remind each other that this happens to all of us, and that we all have some, even if it's not the exact same experience, we have similar experiences, and there's nothing uniquely flawed about you. And the third one is kindness. So if I was in that moment getting present with what I felt, and I'm realizing that I'm feeling really hurt by this information, and that I am feeling like I tried really hard, but they misunderstood something that I said or whatever it is. And then the kindness is, what do I need in this moment? Or what do I need as a result of feeling this way? So maybe I need just a moment to myself to kind of breathe or think through this. Maybe tonight I need, to watch some comedy or whatever it is. But like, if you think of a good friend saying like, what do you need? How can I help you? How can I be with you while you process this or whatever it is? We are showing that same kind of kindness towards ourselves. So this can feel a little bit kind of awkward in the beginning. You can feel like something you need to practice, and that definitely is what it is. It's a skill that we need to be practicing, and it's something that doesn't necessarily come naturally to us. And we might not even notice the way that we talk to ourselves and how it's different to how we would engage with a good friend. So even just starting to be aware of it, and then starting to remind ourselves of those three things: being mindful, our common humanity, and being kind towards ourselves. And when we think of, especially of like kindness, for example, I want to just remind you that when we are thinking of the mammalian care system, in other words, a mother protecting her young, it is not just nurturing, right? It's not just like protecting and holding them safe and when they're crying, you consoling them. It's not only that kind of like warm, tender, nurturing kind of compassion. It is also very fierce, and it can be protective, and it can be strong, and it can be like a moving forward. It doesn't have to be this like passive, not doing anything kind of compassion. So there's the kind of nurturing element of compassion, and there's also the fierce protective element of self-compassion, and they are both important elements of self-compassion. So we don't only want to be kind of kind and calm and everything's fine and we're relaxed and we're nurtured and we are comforted. We also want to be taking action to protect ourselves, to enforce boundaries, to go towards things that are really important to us, to protect the things that matter. They are both of these elements. So just think of kind of nurturing and a fierce. Think of like a mama bear protecting her young. She's not only nurturing to them, she's also fierce and protective when she needs to be. One of the ways that we can engage with it on a like direct physiological level is using touch. And touch is something our nervous system responds very quickly to and very powerfully to. And it is part of what we're doing as healthcare practitioners. We are engaging in the process of having, like, I almost try and think of it as we are one of the parasympathetic cues for our patients. So we are part of what is helping them relax, engage, not be in that kind of fight or flight. And we're doing that through how we speak to them, and also sometimes actual physical gestures, sometimes depending, I mean, this is different depending on the the profession that you're in. But for example, if you are a manual therapist, you have a lot of touch involved in your treatment, and that is part of what is creating that treatment response as well. So we can do that for ourselves. If you think of a good friend and you are telling them that you're struggling, they will kind of like put a hand on your arm, or they'll give you a hug, and you can do different physical gestures to help yourself as well. And again, this might feel awkward in the beginning, but you can remind yourself of like the physiology of it, like it actually has direct effects on your nervous system. So one of the ones, especially if you are feeling, I find it quite helpful if I'm feeling like stressed or like ashamed or judged or disappointed, I put usually like one hand on my heart. It can also be one hand kind of on your abdominal area, but kind of like soothing touch. And then, like I said, you can almost like give yourself a hug or kind of like rubbing your arms. It's like a soothing kind of touch. And you can kind of comfort yourself in moments that you need that physical comfort. And then again, the like fierce aspect of it is like you are motivating yourself, you are supporting yourself, you're saying, I can do this. That kind of support can be kind of like a fist to the chest or something like that, or something like strong, a little bit of a stronger grip or something like that. But it's again, it's not like this, you better do this, you are like, you're so crap, like you better fix this or whatever. It's like this motivation coming from that compassion of like, I know you really want this, I know that you've got this, I know that you can do this, or your boundaries are important, your security and your safety is important, you've got this, you can stand up for yourself, you can be kind of fiercely compassionate towards yourself and what you need. So again, we need the nurturing and the fierce. We can't have only fierce and only like go and protection and fierceness without the gentleness and the nurturing. And we also just don't want to always be gentle and nurturing without that fierceness and without that kind of go energy. So that's all I wanted to chat about with regards to self-compassion today. Let me know if there's anything in this that you specifically want me to go into more detail at a later stage, or if there was anything that you want me to go to add kind of more detail in the comments, I can do that as well. Anything that's feeling kind of unnatural or uncomfortable, just realize this takes practice and it's completely new. That's part of self-compassion. This is new. I'm trying something else. This is going to feel awkward, and that's totally okay. I've got this. That's all self-compassionate talk. So let me know what resonated with you. And yeah, let's get kind of sharing around our experiences and remind each other that we are not alone in these struggles as healthcare providers. If there's anything that I've chatted about today that you are thinking like, okay, that sounds great, but I'm not sure how to like actually implement that in my life, like how do I take this knowledge and actually turn it into action? And then sign up for a mini coaching session. Those sessions are always available to you in the link in the group description. They are for those in this group to get support on anything that we talk about that you feel you need some guidance on or some like practical help with. And you can think of it as like these friction points, like there's an area in your life that you're struggling to take action on, or there's an emotion that you keep having on repeat, or there's a specific like type of patient interaction that you just can't seem to like change the way that you respond to it, whatever it is, these kind of like friction points. You can book a coaching session. We dive into that. We get some clarity on like what exactly is going on. And we also can then decide on something that you can do as an action step that can start getting some momentum for you going forward. So let me know. You can definitely send me a DM if you are unsure of whether what you want to work on is appropriate for these sessions, or if you just want to ask something, please feel free to reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. So have a wonderful Sunday evening, and I wish you a very self-compassionate week ahead. Cheers, guys.